Rain, the source of Earth's fresh water and essential to life. Since our earliest ancestors walked the land, rain has shaped humanity and played its part in the rise and fall of civilizations.
There's a famous saying, "We kalani ola kahonua," and in Hawaiian, and it means when the heavens cry, the land lives, and that's what rain is.
And that's why it continues to play a pivotal role in the rituals of societies around the world. Rain refills our lakes and reservoirs, providing the water each of us needs every day. It feeds us by nourishing our soil, enabling our crops to grow and our livestock to flourish.
雨对人类的这个生存和发展是有非常重要的这个意义的。
But as rainfall patterns become more unpredictable, how will our relationship to rain be transformed in the years to come? And how do we make the most of this precious resource? Rain has a profound role in all our lives. It feeds our senses. Seeing it inspires artists. Hearing it inspires musicians. We love the smell and even the taste of it. We have rituals to ward off rain and ceremonies to call it down. And as we face an increasingly uncertain climate, our relationship with rain will continue to shape the way in which we live. Deep in the forests of Scotland, composer and sound artist Michael Begg is recording the sound of rain for his latest project.
It's actually quite nice. It's very subtle. There's a kind of whisper that you get with light rain hitting needles up there. That's really sweet. And because in a wood like this you don't have lots of big fat leaves making big splashy sounds, it is just the most delicate little needly sound. So you've got soft rain on tall needles. Very, very sweet, it's relaxing.
As well as using a traditional boom mic to record the rain hitting the trees, Michael also uses specialised microphones to record the sound of rain hitting different surfaces.
So we've got a selection of bowls here. Nice little copper pan, ceramic bowl, cake, and a wee Tibetan singing bowl. I'm lucky enough to live in an environment where there's no shortage of material to actually capture. There's always something rich and unexpected. The rain's starting to get a bit heavier. So in this ceramic bowl, we're getting this really nice, it's like a glockenspiel effect, or a xylophone, something like that going on. And we've got slightly quieter, but still quite musical effect of rain coming down into the copper pan. So there you go, it's a completely different quality from the ceramic bowl. It's much deeper, it's obviously more metallic. But the way that's picking up the solid bass transient as the raindrops hit, the individual raindrops, it's going to be really useful to me.
Michael's latest commission is for the Ocean Arctic Partnership. The sound he's recorded will be combined with weather data to create compositions that highlight the effects of climate change.
We can track the changes in what's happening in the polar ice cap and how it's affecting the weather that we have on a daily basis down here. And precipitation and evaporation are two key elements of that. So investigating that has become quite a central part of the composing activity. And the rain itself and the data arising from that rainfall could be charted as an alternative musical notation for me. It has a direct representation of its own voice in the score. Rain is going to continue to play a much more active role in our lives. It's going to be the primary mechanism through which a lot of us become increasingly aware of climate change. And so I was very, very keen to make sure that that was brought to bear in my work. The thing with rain is that we don't think too much of it, but if you were to take a step aside and become a visitor to this planet and saw rain for the first time, it would be such an item of absolute wonder. You know, you have this body that is lifted from the ocean and that's carried great distances seemingly magically in the air, and then it descends in these wonderfully attractive curtains and ribbons and ropes from the sky and replenishes the land. And you know, without rain we're not going to survive very long. So I mean, step aside from your own discomfort for a moment and you'll find something that's filled with wonder.
If the sound of an individual raindrop is musical, then the sound of consistent rainfall is white noise, which can drown out other noises. This may explain why millions of people around the globe use rain sound apps on smartphones and computers to help them relax. In Tsinghua University, Dr. Kun Feng is conducting research into why this might be the case. Her interest stems from her love of music and her previous research into music therapy.
有没有什么声音治疗、音乐治疗可以真的治愈人心的？就是对声音很好奇，而且我也当时就是觉得声音确实是可以让人放松的。通常有时候会做放松冥想，然后我们用的这些器材呢，就是用的声音呢，有时候我们就会用鸟声啊，或者说雨声啊，或者这种溪流的声音啊。
Her research focuses on the prefrontal lobe. When we're stressed or anxious, neural activity in this area can be sluggish. So can using the sound of rain change this?
发现了，当给予雨声的时候，就是它的脑波是可以被激活的，所以这也能让我们，至少是我们可以去探索，就是雨声到底对人的影响是怎样。这是挺值得我们去探索，因为它这样的一种放松的音乐，这是大自然赋予我们的。这样的环境呢，就是也可能让它可以更容易的，它把那个副交感激活的话，它就自己会，因为那是个低频，假设这种状况更容易激活的是副交感神经，它会让人就是处在放松，然后也就是可能心率会减慢，会整个人的状态会就减下来，所以可能它会更容易去睡着。
But the research shows that rain does not affect everyone in the same way. For most people, the familiar sound is comforting, but this is not the case for others.
但是也要警惕，就是确实对于一些人来说，可能雨声它是有一些背景故事的。比方说雨声在那个天，他经历了一些生活上的变故，或者甚至是比方说大的像这次的这个水灾啊，那可能对于一个人来说，这种雨声就是体验就会不一样，他的激活的脑波也会有不一样的。
Studies like this can also have practical uses. In one study, researchers worked with patients who were awaiting operations.
有一些外科医生呢，在给病人做手术之前呢，他会让一组的病人听这个雨声，然后让一组的病人就是什么都不听，然后那个研究就显示说，其实这个无论是做什么样的手术，其实人都是有这个术前焦虑的啊。所以的话，术前焦虑他们之间在术前是没有差异的，但是在给一部分人在听过雨声之后呢，他们在就是在做手术的过程中，他们整个的焦虑水平就降低了，而且他们在术后，他们恢复会比术前没有就是采取任何措施的人会更好啊。然后，但是绝大多数脑区就是有一些就是在从听雨声之后就持续的脑就被激活了啊，是这个兴奋状态，就只雨声是让他就是让他可以更好的做任务，可以让他就是大脑注意力可以更加兴奋，然后这还是一个挺好的一个结果的。
Dr. Feng's research explains to us the science behind why people use rain sound apps to relax. And she can also empathize.
这时候，比方说工作特别忙碌，我要是回家开车的路上，可能我会选择放一段雨声，因为我会觉得就是这个就是我把我这一天的工作就都洗刷，然后让我能够放松下来。这至少对我来说，我觉得雨声是挺放松的。
If the familiar sound of rain is comforting, in countries where rainfall is scarce, even the idea of rain is exotic. So it may be a surprise to find an art installation in the United Arab Emirates that explores our personal relationship with rain. Rain Room.
The idea developed, I think, incrementally over a period of time where we were working with different media, and water was one of those elements that we tried to use for a sculptural project. And what seemed to be a really dead end suddenly allowed us to think about a whole environment in which we could control rain. And we were like, if we can do that, then we might as well insert a human into a rainstorm without that person getting wet. It's a very elemental shared experience. People relate to rain across cultures, across gender, across age.
And you have the sound, you have the smell. It's not just the raindrop. I think maybe in daily life, the visual impact is maybe the least important, because you have the smell, you have the sound on different surfaces. You can really read your environment if you're under a glass roof or outside.
Rain Room is a 100 square metre field of perpetually falling raindrops, where the water is constantly recycled. When people walk into the room, network sensors in the floor cut off the supply of water from above, letting each person wander through the downpour without getting wet.
The way that people respond with their body language to Rain Room is very similar across cultures and across the different locations where we've shown it. So that there are these, people who almost aggressively meet the unknown ahead of them. They just stride in and usually get soaked a little bit because they're a bit too quick. There are other people who are very conscious about their bodily sphere. They look very closely where they walk, where they put their foot. And then there are also people there just observing. It's very sort of archaic personality types that come out in the behavior towards the rain, I think.
Rain Room found its permanent home at the Sharjah Art Foundation in 2018. Before this, it had been installed in many cities across the world, following its premiere in London's Barbican in 2012. The artists were struck by the different responses the work provoked in different countries.
I think in Los Angeles it had been a drought for 8 months. So there was a young family with a baby, and they came to the Rain Room specifically not to have an art experience, but for their child to experience rain for the first time in its life. That was food for thought in terms of, is this how we will
Dystopian.
Dystopian futures, you know, is this all we have left to experience nature, like these very sparse, minimalist recreations of something? And it's frightening how quickly we trigger on that.
One way to recreate the experience of rain may be to focus on a single sense. In Kanauj, in northern India, local perfumers have perfected the process of creating the scent of rain.
The smell that you get from post a rain, it is something which cannot be defined in words. It is heavenly. And so we try to create that fragrance into a bottle, a perfume oil, which is called atar mitti. And atar mitti is basically the smell of, you know, the rain captured in a bottle.
Kanauj has been at the heart of the Indian perfume industry since the time of the Mughals. But the Mishran family began to create the atar mitti in the early 1900s.
My great-grandfather was among a handful of perfumers who discovered this art. He was also among the very few perfumers who used to supply zamindars to the kings, to the royal families of those times.
And he passed these secrets down to his son, who in turn passed them on to the younger generations of the family.
My grandfather, he used to take us, me and my brothers, to the nearby ponds, and we used to practically see from what kind of mud is required. We have seen the whole chain right from scratch, and he used to mention that the rains are very, very crucial part of this.
Even on the rich alluvial plains of the Ganges basin, only rain-fed ponds have the unique biochemical ingredients to create the atar mitti. During dry periods, certain plants produce an oil which is absorbed by the clay soils. When it rains, the oil is released along with geosmin, a chemical released by various blue-green algae which live in the soil. Together, the oil and the geosmin produce petrichor, the earthy scent of rain. These rain-fed clays are the basis of the methods used to create atar mitti.
We have these suppliers of the baked clay. So these are people who collect the mud from the rainwater ponds, and they are baking it in a certain formation. We put this baked clay into these vessels. Then we pour water from this, and then from the hydrodistillation process, we get the vapors from this into a funnel. This funnel has a base oil which is used as a fixative to carry the fragrance, because the molecule which arises from the mud, it does not have any liquid formation of its own, so we need a base oil. So we get that collected into a base oil, and then we filter it into making into different vessels, and there are certain process of filtration. Then we filter it out, and then the bottling happens, and then it is ready to be dispatched. This is something which is close to my heart, and this is close to my tradition. So why not carry this forward, and something of very own Indian origin and very of my own can be offered to the world, which is pure, which is natural, and which is very, very organic.
But in order to preserve this heritage, the arrival of the monsoon rains are crucial.
Even before the monsoons come in, everybody is worried whether there'll be good rains, there will not be good rains, and so on and so forth. Atar mitti, we were always told, it smells like the first rain that comes on the ground, which is soothing, which has a sense of relief. It has a soothing smell. It has a sense of relaxation.
As the perfumers of Kanauj make use of the available rain to create their unique product, on the other side of the globe, another local company also depends on a constant supply of rainwater. In Scotland, it is often said that today's rain is tomorrow's whiskey. and the people of Rasay in the mild, wet climes of the west coast of Scotland know about both.
Ga meer hoeken gaan naar Arset. Ik unig maar echt er jaarlijkje van zuinig te hakken, zo'n landje. Is hashing maar voorsnog gewillen thuisstellen akenje. Als je vechten gaat rang ze haai, ach kutje ga kormon oprach en is kenketje dus thuisstellen nog rauwen van een show. Kan koik blienig in een raas, garoskiel leed thuisstellen naar kalmersen. En nish habarak eet fiechet niachen is gopet zijn thuisstellen.
To put that in context, 1 in 8 people living on the island now work in whiskey.
Aan de Rarscher heb ik maar zo'n richtje, lees gewelschen taring uske mag as na krieken. Ha kriek ganewig akin van er gassen, is van thuisstellen show, is hashing gema forsnig gewel ket akin. Gus boorholie janu, sashin taring mag, en uske gus en uske behe janu.
Essentially, we have a large mixing bowl with a sieve on the bottom. You've got 9,000 litres of water coming in, and essentially what we're doing is we're trying to boil the sugar out of the barley using the hot water. What you end up with is about 5,000 litres of the sugary water draining out through the bottom of the sieve on the mash tun, and then you end up with the excess water being recycled back into the system again. The barley's then just deposited out the door, the solids that we don't use, and it's donated as local cattle feed. So both the excess barley and the excess water is all just getting recycled.
Nur ha gol is gebehe, geharis aan de heerturis, gaf blasach gun iske, no kali lesjach, so nur schon kurana iske. Nish nur ha gelachjes ha een saf gemal lachjes kutjach. Ach en nur schon nur gures tuske sjach bi gal saf netter jaarlichtje. Ik gach ide. Enten ritten me een is gebehe. Fit tu is gebehe gol aan een doi smbi. Chaneel doi kiara.
The Hebridean Islands get over 1,000 millimetres of rain annually, and it usually rains on Rasay on over 200 days every year. It is therefore an ideal location for whiskey production.
There's probably nothing more important to making whiskey than the water. It's the core ingredient. Water, barley, yeast. By law, it's the only 3 things we're allowed to use to make Scotch whiskey. We are distilling on site, but we're also bottling, we're also maturing, filling our casks here. So what's quite interesting about the distillery opposed to some other places is that we actually are using one single water supply for every stage in the process.
So the rain that falls on the island is now part of a worldwide market, as the whiskey it helps create is sent all over the globe. Miles south of Rasay in Ireland, abundant rainfall feeds thousands of holy wells up and down the country. Here, people believe that bathing in and even drinking the rainwater is good for mind, body and soul.
People circle the well, praying, saying the rosary. Some people get their solace from walking in the water barefoot. Maybe it's a cleansing of the soul. I suppose it was something that was probably adopted by Christianity from pagan times. When you look at the surroundings here, there's something very tranquil and peaceful about it, and there is most certainly something very spiritual about it. My family goes back generations here. The O'Dolans are known as the Ernochs, which would be it's like a hereditary keeper of the well, keeper of the water, and we're supposed to look after it and maintain it and so on. A geologist who was here in the past maintained that the water fell as rain maybe 200 to 300 years ago. Took so long to permeate down through the rocks, it was cleansed but it also may have picked up trace elements of iron and copper and so on. Somewhere on the water table there is a fracture, and the pressure forces the water up at 600 gallons a minute. The flow of water never changes. The water in the well is supposedly has the cure of a sore throat and of a bad stomach. I know people who swear by it.
Very chidden shala, non the boy, and so I lay a belt on you. I guess passionary la genu kenshin and what akiji be is na hand be here. I guess go should a total. I guess go more right in him. The dini goni boy from canals and rudder. Ta contact on faster for rainy va shark not about trumlachum. I guess go daughter should better jalov than wage and water law no cross family. I guess go damage sin snishke. Agus gur seo dóid le dhéirí ar na déthe fatain a chóirt chugan. Go minic bíonn mar hampla crám ag an tobar agus chuirú daoine bratagaí ar a crám agus bíonn daoine más go náistrathe in acid go dtíon bratag agus a réir mar bhíonn bratag go fiá ba sin mar bhíonn acid a gimach do chéin nó do gine mantra. No, you credu gur idir goálaí an tuisce idir an síl seo agus an síl eile, idir a ní a bhí feicithe agus a ní dó aici, idir an duine agus brun na hallhhairthe mar smáileat. No, ba waithe a hanig an tuisce agus ba waithe a hanig an behead a réir sin. Sílam go dtigin daoine go bhfuil ceangal idir na héitne seo agus an chian amsir agus gur gáid gur bhfuil muidir déanú teagháil leis na héitne díabhrathe sin ó réine ar sinse agus gur sin chéad ná brisú.
There's something very peaceful and calming about the well, and local people, you know, it's part of us. And really, it's everybody's well. It's not just one person's or one family. The well belongs to everybody, and it'll be here for generations to come.
If rainwater in Ireland's holy wells can acquire divine characteristics, it is held in equally high esteem in China, where it has been used for centuries in the art of brewing tea. However, choosing the right type of rainwater was always important and continues to be so to this day.
那个明代的张元啊，他在这个茶录当中就说，那么茶者是水之神，水者是茶之体。 那么，所以在选择如何用水泡茶这个问题上，古人就提出了自己的这个见解。那么，雨水在明代人看来啊，它是一种天地阴阳调和的这样一种产物，所以它又被称之为天泉。那么，从这个之后，年轻人就开始使用雨水去泡茶了。秋天的水比较好。 梅雨季节的水次之啊，用它的原文叫秋水干而烈，秋水白而烈，梅水干白而干。那么甘甜的水呢，会夺去茶的这个本味，所以梅水就不如秋水。那么春天的水和夏天的水相比呢，那春天的水要更好一点啊，因为春天的这个水是。 和风是所谓的甘雨甘露降下来的，夏天的水一般会认为说稍微再次一点，特别是那些暴雨降下来的水，古人认为它是不宜饮用的，不宜饮用。那么在大雨滂沱、连绵不断的这种雨，或者说是颜色发黑的这些雨。 或有腥臭味的雨，或者是直接从屋檐上接下来的这些雨水，那么都是不宜直接饮用的。那么不论是梅水还是雪水还是秋水，那么在收集之后都要经过长时间的储存，让它彻底的这个清澈之后，才可以用来煮茶和烹茶。那么收集的方式比较多样。 如果你们感兴趣的话，可以去北海公园。北海公园有一个雕塑叫做仙人乘鹿盘，很有意思。它是一个铸成的一个金人的这样一个雕塑。这个人手里头呢捧着一个盘，那个盘就是用来承接雨水的。
Rain is entwined with the tea-making culture of China, but it has also inspired many of its ancient poets.
我们的诗歌当中，我们的诗词当中就会出现很多与之相关的，比如与时间、与友情、与心绪相关的这样一些诗词比如我们非常熟悉的杜甫的“好雨知时节，当春乃发生”这两句太有名了。那么一个“好”字就能看出杜甫对这场春雨的喜爱之情，而且他用的是一种拟人化的写法知时节，表明这个雨是有意识的，他选择了该降下的时候，在春天万物滋生的这个时候落下。小的时候就单纯觉得这些名篇佳作特别的美，读起来朗朗上口，有一种美感在其中。
The great Chinese poems would have been written using calligraphy, which is an artistic interpretation of the characters in the Chinese written language.
与这汉字在甲骨文当中写作，这个形状它的上面有一横代表天，下面呢有6条断续的这个短线，代表不停滴落的这个雨滴。那在金文当中呢，上面这3条线有时候会接上，有时候会断续，就像云一样。那么经过历变之后的楷书写作我们今天常见的这个雨的形象。所以《说文语部》对于它的解释是：雨是水从云中来，云中来。那么这个匡，我们常写的这个雨的这个匡半匡，念作迥，迥就是云的意思，云的意思。水临其间也。意思就是说，水是从天上的云里面降下来的，它的本意是雨水，而雨也可以用作动词表示下雨，因为水滋养万物，所以雨又含有恩泽恩惠的这个意思。
If rain is a blessing, what do you do if you don't want it to rain? In Ireland, you call for the child of Prague. Tradition holds that if this small, flamboyantly dressed statue of the child Jesus is placed in the bride's garden on the eve of a wedding, then it will not rain on the big day.
Lan Morag.
Yeah.
Ife, Pussa Morag. The Cunnaje,
Five a positive most of Thomas Gear Gamai, Law Bragan.
I'm up in green, Tom with the Soul. Shall we even tennis?
Chira Marinos. Tashila Chim, of course, Nick Chacht, a couple of nomads, August Bay, Land of Prague, Eke, August, Dirt Sheila, Goil, Shine and Far.
I'm a Huibli and Zeg, the Mohil, then a Rave Oshish, the Heimstra, or foot and down, a kind between the Pishogishin, Ach, Feckham Hen, Gabay. Horace Oliacht atá níos táhatí ná cholas creative mar sin, but banna trialas éonrad atá an agus mar éonrad sin ag tíirech agus mas rud ige déir an síle Tim go an Child of Prague gama chamérá go bhfuil si gama.
Dearweep. Well, oh, the fair in a balloon. Oh yeah, agus an Child of Prague.
Go me lol breu gal green chat a moide. The chudis mu de macha seanó.
Yeah.
Tar deoideh gon lean of isa. Sinna tugus ní gon dealach gon lean of isa héin. Ca me rá go raib de segum serenos. A chhfuil said ben sás do ha mer sé terim le vi sé testal go géir. Ní gá go mer sé terim me family. So sinna ta machine in sjó fós me ta na vins lá terim me testal. Tugam hart on statue agus. Ai brinse. Tugan sé grás de éile chamáile sin. Tugan tam herrálet go tugan. Sláinte an ardvice lethe dhéga chrán na páise. Chun sin na híro. Sláinte na mná mála rug amach gan chéile. Agus sláinte na fáric a bheith a bhenaí éirin. So tar sláinte na nuíh agus Isa, okay. Denise, could you move the land of Isa go in show?
Cannot, Sheila.
Well, I can just desk compost. Okay. Come here, brand new stech at the tech. I guess I did lawn on first the morning. I guess a brunner grass the noses in the flash.
Fair play, girls.
Hog a measured sun of sauce the fair seal.
Not
been a Hastings win. Soccer she's good as a churn sheet.
Okay.
I guess not.
Susan Shaw.
Share.
What you get?
Carton? It's Chindish. I guess here and we did ye, I guess and Lena Viesinish.
Susan Shaw?
Stech Chindish. A brunner in a lawn on Aoife, I guess Kian.
Yeah, well, Nina and Bosch took, so yeah, Tiber shape.
We're in a line of Prague and on job doing. Pan I'm sure go hall in agus bhí sé ar ice. So Thomas on sauce.
Yeah, bhí sé híntaach. Yeah.
Bhfuilinn go mór an dealamh a curmach and ní ribh the banish.
A day without rain might be rare enough to be cause for celebration in Ireland. But in the UAE, a country that has one of the lowest annual rainfalls in the world, hoping for rain is ingrained in its culture and religion.
It rains more and more rarely in Dubai, so it used to rain a lot more 30 or 40 years ago. And we would get multiple days of rain. Here, if it does rain, it will rain for a day, and that's it. So the rain has really reduced over the last 50 years very noticeably. I think people do remember heavy rains and they remember the weather being better, but it's present in the psyche culturally in that sense.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
We do have a prayer for rain in Islam. We pray it here, usually every year. It's usually done at the behest of when the ruler of the country, here in the UAE, Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed, there'll be a public announcement that people will be asked to come and pray for rain in a certain number of days. So it should be 3 or 4 days before, so you can spiritually prepare yourself for the experience. So you're supposed to fast for 3 days prior to the prayer for rain and repent from all your sins and give money to the poor and generally become a better person, inshallah, before you actually ask for something, so that your prayer will be answered.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
The first part is the actual standard Eid prayer, or the prayer that we would pray on the 2 feast days of Islam, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. And then the Imam would get up on the pulpit and he would give a sermon asking for God's forgiveness 7 times in the first part of the sermon and 5 times in the second part of the sermon. And then he would turn his cloak over, and so the bottom of it is facing towards the heavens. And then the congregation would do the same thing. And then he would make a prayer, a dua, as we say in Arabic, where he would say, Allahumma ij'alha suqya rahmatin, wa la taj'alha suqya adhabin, wa la hadmin, wa la bala'in, wa la gharaqin.
Allahumma suqya rahmah. لا سقيا عذاب ولا هدم ولا غرق.
The translation of this is, O Lord, please make it a prayer of mercy and don't make it a prayer of torment, nor an annihilation or a tribulation or something that will cause our buildings to fall down or for us to drown.
Allahu Akbar.
Cultures that grew out of the desert value any rainfall. But the farmers of Assam depend on the arrival of the monsoon rains. Here, ritual plays an important role in making sure they come and are plentiful when they do.
Amar ইয়াত যেটো মানে এৰিয়াত বৰষুণৰ যেতিয়া অভাৱ হয় তেতিয়া আমাৰ খেতিয়কসকলে আকাশলৈ মেঘলৈ চাই থকাৰ বাদে আৰু কোনো উপায় নাই।
Biswajit Saika lives in the tea-growing area of Assam. The village has no irrigation, and the local river is prone to pollution, so rain is vital for its survival. The villagers are aware of the pressure this places on their community from a very young age, and in junior school they are taught a poem that offers a solution.
O meg, borokhun ni dio kiyo? Meghe tetia koise, bhekuliye je tur nuturai moinu dim kiyo? Orthat, bhekuli aru meghor majot somporko rakhise.
But the croak needs to be coaxed from the frogs. So the villagers perform the ritual of the frog wedding. Soon, the male and female frog will be married in a lavish ceremony, repeating a tradition that has been around for generations.
গতিকে সেই কাৰণে মানুহে মানে অতীজৰ পৰা আমাৰ ককা দেউতা আজু ককা দিনৰ পৰাই বৰষুণ নহলে মানে এই ভেকুলি বিয়া পাতি আহিছে ট্ৰেডিশনালি এইটো ইয়াত চলি আহিছে.
It is the women of the village who prepare the frogs for the wedding, but everyone contributes something, be it money or food, clothing or decoration. The frog's wedding can cost as much as a human ceremony, though the idea behind the ritual is simple.
ঠিক হেমতে যেতিয়া পানী খৰাং হয় নহয় ভেকুলিয়ে টুটুৰাই নেথাকে পানী পালেহে ভেকুলিয়ে টুটুৰাই ভেকুলিৰ লগত বতৰৰ সম্বন্ধ আছে আৰু বৰুণ দেৱতাৰ লগত সম্বন্ধ
Since the entire village is involved in organising the wedding, they all turn out to celebrate.
ভেকুলি বিয়া বৰষুণৰ কথা কৈছে ভেকুলি মানে আমি ভেকুলি বিয়া পাতো নহয় আমি গান গাই ভেকুলি বিয়া পাতো যেতে গান আমি যিমানে গান গাওঁ সিমানে মানে আমি মনতে ভাবো যে আমাক বৰুণ দেৱতাই এবাৰ কথা শুনিছে আমি হেকানে গীত গাই ভেকুলি বিয়া পাতো তোমাৰ আমকা গলৈ
And finally, it's time for the frogs to begin their wedded life together. In Waimea, on the island of Hawaii, the traditions for calling down rain also have deep roots.
Rain is important to our people and our landscape. It's important to our farmers, our families. It has great significance around the whole world, but the rain is what continues our agriculture. It continues to feed our land. It's the waters that we have. There's a famous saying, "We kalani ola kahonua," and in Hawaiian, and it means in English, when the heavens cry, the land lives, or the earth is alive, and that's what rain is. We have hundreds of different rains in Hawaii. Maybe rains fall from the east, they have a name different from the ones that fall in the west, and different from the ones that fall straight down. We have rains that kind of go horizontal, some that come with winds, some that come with fog, and so all those characteristics garner a different name for the different rains. And famous ones where I live, the kipu'upu'u, the lilinoi is a fog type of rain that comes with some wind, and they're family to us. The rains become part of our ohana. And so when we need them, we call them and they come.
They begin by preparing the hokupu, an offering they will present to the rain gods. As they believe that plants are physical manifestations of the gods, a selection of vegetables nourished by the previous year's rainfall are wrapped in leaves.
In prep for ceremony, we will have a week of pule, which is prayer. We'll have certain eating rituals that's done in preparation for our bodies to be ready to be in that spiritual realm. And then when it's time for ceremony, we put on our traditional garments, and we have a kihe. We put on kinolau, or adornments, onto our body that represent certain things, and then we conduct ceremony. We usually dance with our ceremony, and so we have the hula that's conducted, and those are the movements of the earth. So as the beats are drumming, they're the beats of the earth and the movements of the earth. And then you see how the trees blow and the rain falls. And so it's almost like ceremony or more ritual, and giving more to it, yeah, by having the actual movements of rain fall as we're chanting for rain to come down. A lot of prayers are involved, a lot of prepping the spirit, and a lot of prayers for protection, and then being in the right mind frame and conducting ceremony. For generations, we have conducted rain ceremonies, and it was taught to us by our grandparents, and it was taught to them by their grandparents, and it's the whole aspect of giving back and having that exchange with your environment around you and being one with your landscape.
Hey ho mai, hey ho mai, hey ho mai, tawa o lunane. Hey ho mai, hey ho mai, hey ho.
We will offer our crops onto a rain ko'a, or a rock-structured platform, and pray to the rain gods and ask them for more rain and for life-giving rain that will feed our earth and feed our crops and then make it abundant. And then eventually it will start raining down on us, and it's important for us to keep these traditions alive because they were passed all the way down to us. They survived generations. Who are we to stop it now? So it's for us to make sure they survive for the next generations. And who knows, if we stop chanting for rain, maybe there'll be a drought and we'll lose everything we have. So it's not a risk I think we're willing to take. And so we'll continue the traditions of our people and continue to call for rain to keep our island thriving as much as we can.
From ancient poets to modern artists, rain has always fascinated humanity. As we look at traditions across the world, it brings into focus rain's impact on our beliefs and our cultures.